The 163rd episode of Death Battle is Boba Fett vs Predator. The analysis was not very interesting. I retain nothing of Boba Fett's beyond the number of tons of TNT the thermal detonators are packing. The Predator one was more interesting, but also just, it didn't really please me as a Predator fan. Like, as a fan of individual characters like Scar and especially Scarface, why do I say especially? I like them both equally. I'm not really getting an episode with an actual character that I like. This is treating the overall Yautja species like their Pokemon, while also ignoring the differences between clans in Bad Bloods versus Blooded Yautja. Along with the strange claim that Yautja are forever doomed if they lose once while showing Scarface, a Yautja who failed and then regained his honor later. And while everything is mostly about the movies, they also just randomly bring in the Scythe from Alien vs Predator Extinction, meaning we're combining the Jungle Hunter clan, the Lost Tribe, the Isolated clan, and the unnamed clan from that game? But even with that in mind, the analysis is just rather forgettable. In not talking about an actual character, they really just do spend the whole analysis talking about versus stuff, and I sleep. It's also just painfully unfunny. Let's look at these banger jokes. Jango let it go to his head.
To amuse his head.
Dummy has a personal hero who wants to kill meat bags. Wiz can't pronounce Yautja. Penis mouth.
It's a penis.
Gary Busey. Lions, tigers, and bears. Oh shit. Sexual Tyrannosaurus. How amusing. Honestly, the funniest moments aren't even jokes. The funniest moments in the whole episode are Fett's funny stick, Fett's spaceship nuka missile as seen here causing a small explosion in some sand, and Wiz just saying the number 1987. I said it that way just to upset Biff, who is, by the way, doing his own review of this episode, which you can go check out in the description, which I have linked and will also be linked in an end card. I don't know, what else am I supposed to say about the analysis? I just didn't really enjoy it. About the battle, there are a few things off the bat that bother me, but they're not like major drawbacks, they just distract me sometimes. I don't like the physics on Boba's scarf, and especially not on the Yautja's dreadlocks. They're either stiff as a big, thick, throbbing, erect cock, or they're flopping around weightlessly like he's Nakali, and it's just distracting sometimes how unnatural they feel. I also am not a huge fan of the look of the battle overall, in that I think it's a bit too bright and plastic looking. Normally I'd say that is just par for the course with 3D episodes nowadays due to the software. However, Harley vs Jinx did show that they can do better. I also think the shadows can be a bit distracting sometimes, but they're not that bad, they're just a little weird. And the Yautja's face has some real Tetsuo Megamind forehead shit going on, and it just looks a bit silly. But none of that really is my major problem, and neither is the other issue, which isn't really a problem with the fight itself, more so that I personally would have taken this battle in a different direction. So the episode itself just has like a fight, just a direct battle. If I was making it, I would have focused the battle more on the Yautja's traps, cunning, and having that hunter-hunted vibe, where you're not entirely sure who is the hunter and who is the hunted. Of course, as I said, that's just a matter of a different sort of take on how the fight would go. It's not a right or wrong thing. I'm not going to say that they did their battle wrong because they went a different direction to how I would. That'd be really unfair to say. Oh yeah, and by the way, just because this Predator does not have a name, from now on I'm going to refer to him by the loving name of John Yautja. With that being said, the fight also has some details that I like. I like the first person shots of John Yautja's heads up display, and like whenever they do it in the fight, it's cool, and I feel like it was kind of necessary to have that in the battle. And while I feel like the lightsaber should be so hot that it'd be visible among fire, in that you can literally see for a fact that it is, I do like that they attempted the first person infrared view. I also think the peak of the fight is the start, with the sort of decent suspense build up of John hunting Boba but then getting shot down, and the plasma caster coming out when Boba doesn't expect it. In fact, the plasma caster bit is maybe my favorite shot in the whole fight, and this sequence is my favorite overall, as it establishes to both characters not to underestimate the other. Boba can see through John Yautja's cloak, but John Yautja also has plenty of equipment Boba isn't expecting. So it sets a precedent for both of them that the opponent could have something unexpected in their kit. But then Boba fires his spaceship nuking tier jetpack rocket and creates a person-sized explosion! Okay, then John Yautja fires a disc and Boba moves his jetpack into the trajectory. You fucking goon! The following fight now isn't necessarily bad, it's just kind of uninteresting. John Yautja catches and lets a missile explode in his face because he's an idiot too apparently, but this actually only happens so they can have his funny stick teleport onto his back when it wasn't there in the previous shot, and he can pull it out. Thankfully for Boba though, he doesn't need an explosion to mask the sudden appearance of his funny stick. It just teleports directly into his hands and gives us the funny stick fight, which is fine. It's funny stick fight, what can I say? But Boba just going full ape brain and thwacking John Yautja with the round end of the stick was kind of funny. Though, it doesn't really help Boba when John Yautja takes his arm off with a smart razor, which is a pretty damn good shot and one of my favorites of the battle. I like this quite a bit. Then John Yautja decides to try and stab the tree. Even though he has vision that allow him to look past the tree and see that Boba is not there and he's actually sitting on a branch above. I guess John Yautja really is kind of incompetent. And then we get the biggest and most impressive explosion of the episode. Not the self-destruct, but rather a single individual thermal detonator. Which is kind of crazy because this is a thermal detonator way stronger than Boba's backpack rocket, and also way more impressive than the clip they showed earlier. But Boba miscalculated, because he seemed to forget that John Yautja has the unique ability to summon melee weapons when engulfed in explosions, as he pulls forth the Death Scythe of Ultimate Doom. This is the part that made me realize how weird it is that this is a weapon which generally is only given to Spearmasters, but is currently being wielded by what looks like a completely normal-blooded Yautja. This guy looks like he's based on the Jungle Hunter Predator from the first movie, who was not a Spearmaster, and also his only real character, personality of that Jungle Hunter is that he carries very little gear. Anyway, I actually have a theory as to John Yautja's past, but I'll save that for later. Boba cauterizes his wound with the lightsaber, which is cool. Then he says, "You are one ugly motherfucker," which is lame. That does not at all sound like a Boba Fett line. It sounds exactly like what it is. A reference that has no reason to be said or called back to within the context of the situation. There are so many other things that Boba could have said. He could have said a swear in his language. Well, not really, his language is English, but he could have said a swear in another language, reference something in Star Wars that would refer to something that is ugly, or my personal favorite, just, I've seen worse. Then we get a mediocre clash of plasma weapons, and John Yautja somehow can't see Boba? So hold on, he was able to see Boba just fine before, but now suddenly, just because Boba fell to the ground, he can't. I guess the ground is the same temperature as all of Boba's body, but then the lightsaber would be pretty obvious if that was the case. And if Boba's body was still engulfed in the fire, the lightsaber is still visible, as we see. I don't know, and given he's in the middle of swinging down, why does he just stop? He just knocked Boba over. He should be fully aware that chances are, he'll make contact if he just swings down. Well, anyway, Boba gets 2 hits in, managing to cut off some of John... Oh wait, no, he doesn't actually. I saw that wrong. He just breaks the scythe, and then John Yautja decides to kill himself. Yeah, he just randomly decides after 2 hits where he wasn't even really that injured, or injured at all, to use the self-destruct, and somehow it's less impactful than the thermal detonator. It just leaves a small crater, and unlike the thermal detonator where we get to see John recoiling from the blast, Boba's just unharmed walking away. Wow, that was shockingly unexciting. I don't know, this battle just has nothing going on aside from the cool start and a couple okay moments later on. It was a pretty average fight that lacked any real surprises or interesting choreography. I can't even say that it was bad because it was just kind of average. I can't give it much praise or criticism because it's uninteresting. Obviously there are some moments I don't like. Boba's reference line was lame, John Yautja's head is distractingly deformed, the entire ending is really abrupt and sudden, and frankly I think the most interesting part of the fight is John Yautja himself. So let's talk about John Yautja for a second. Here's my theory on the backstory of this guy. Yes, we're going there. I need something to talk about. So what do we know about John Yautja from this fight? Well, clearly he's got the appearance of a Jungle Hunter Clan Yautja. He possesses mostly Jungle Hunter Clan weaponry, including the Jungle Hunter Clan style of Smart Disc, while wielding the unnamed AVPE Clan Scythe. He lacks any indication of being a Spearmaster in his design, and is clearly too stupid in his actions and hunting to really be at Spearmaster level while wielding a Spearmaster's weapon for some reason. And also, he weaponizes his self-destruct. On the last one, for anybody who isn't aware, an Honorable Yautja's self-destruct is used when they have been defeated as a way to honorably commit suicide and as a result remove any traces of their presence. It is not meant as a weapon to kill their opponents. If their opponent has bested them, then they have the right to survive. That's why there's a countdown, so the person who has earned their respect can get away in time. The only time a self-destruct is used offensively is when the need for high-level destruction outweighs the potential disgrace of a Yautja getting captured or something. Say if they're being swarmed by xenomorphs. It would never be used by a blooded, honorable Yautja against a worthy foe in a one-on-one battle. However, John Yautja here not only activates it before he has taken any real major injuries, with, in case you're wondering, the position he's in, really would not be considered imminent defeat by most Yautja, or really any Yautja, especially against a one-armed foe. But he still activates his self-destruct anyway, and with no countdown? So with that in mind, my theory is that John Yautja began as a Jungle Hunter Clan Yautja. However, his sheer brain-dead stupidity caused him to lose his honor due to failing a hunt by attacking a random tree instead of his prey. Instead of letting himself be executed for his failure or trying to regain his honor somehow, John Yautja ran away and became a Bad Blood. Now, Bad Blood Yautja do not follow the Yautja code, thus they are open to weaponizing their self-destruct in a one-on-one scenario. This is also where he got his scythe. He somehow managed to stumble across a dead Spearmaster and decided, oh, who cares if I'm not a Spearmaster, this scythe is fucking cool, and went around with it in his pocket dimension of explosion-summoned polearms. However, John Yautja eventually met his end, having fallen to Bobble Feet in one-on-one combat, where he stupidly decided that his method of trying to explosion summon an even bigger polearm would be to kill himself. Anyway, that's enough of that spiel. Let's talk about the conclusion. So one thing they say off the bat is that Fett's armor covers more of his body, which confuses me, because it really depends on the clan. Like the Killer's clan, for instance, wear full body armor, and yeah, they are Bad Bloods, but it still sets a precedent that it's not really clear that you can say that, oh, Boba Fett's armor covers more of his body than anything the Yautja would have. Of course, I am bringing outside information to the death battle, it's just something I noticed. But then even in death battle, we see a version of the Yautja armor that covers his whole fucking body! Anyway, it is almost hilarious how much of what they say in the conclusion does not match the fight. Fett's long-range gear and jetpack help him keep his distance against the scythe. Except in the fight, his long-range gear is woefully ill at keeping John Yautja away, as most of the battle is in melee, and his jetpack is taken out really easily, and this is all before the scythe comes out. His flamethrower could mess with John Yautja's thermal vision, but John was able to fight just fine for a while after, and it seemed to be that he was more blinded by Boba Fett falling over. The flamethrower had nothing to do with it. Nothing the Predator had could withstand a lightsaber, except John takes 2 hits from a lightsaber, one of which is basically hitting him in the face, and he's completely fine and unharmed. Boba would outfox John Yautja with dirty tactics, but the only thing close to a dirty tactic is Boba climbing to the top of a tree, and John being too stupid enough to look up and just attacking the tree. Boba would be killed by the epicenter of the explosion, but if he got 50 meters away, he'd be fine. However, in the fight, he's literally right fucking there. Yes, I know cinematic timing is a thing, but the only reason you would assume that Boba Fett ran away before the explosion is from the conclusion, and even then you have to put the pieces together. It just looks like Boba took the explosion and walked off. Literally all they would need to have is, after this shot of the Predator's kind of bored face, Boba just turns to run away, then cut to the explosion, and it'd be a bit more believable. Now yes, okay, the fight is meant to be a fun representation of their research, while the conclusion is, well, the researcher's conclusion. However, I personally like it more when a fight is at least somewhat representative of what's explained, at least in terms of how the powers and arsenals interact. I can accept that a character who they determine is billions of times stronger doesn't kill their opponent in one hit, because that'd be lame. However, what I would like is that when they explain how their arsenals and abilities bounce off each other, that part is represented in the animation. After all, if the animation is meant to represent their research, why is it showing different interactions to what their research establishes? I don't know, man, there are things about this episode that just drag it down for me. It's pretty boring in a lot of places, and some things just bother me. It's not necessarily a bad episode, it's just a super average one. It's the most death battle episode. I don't give number scores anymore because I find that people generally only focus on the number score and then say I nitpick to get it, when the nitpicks are meant as fun observations and my actual criticisms are the ones that I focus on, and the number is just arbitrary. But just this once, I'll let you know that I give this episode like a 6 out of 10. It's just really painfully average. The next time is... well, they advertised Raiden vs. Excalibur vs. Jocelyn the Intern as a bonus episode, but if you are privy to knowledge from that weird concert that apparently Biff Wheat's friends went to, then you'd actually know that there's something else coming out. But I won't spoil it. But I'm also not particularly interested in Raiden vs. Excalibur, I just don't care for Raiden returning at all. Okay, that's it for this half of the season, I'll see you for... whatever fucking video is next.
You are one ugly motherfucker.
Never heard that one before.
You should kill yourself.